There is a truth buried beneath centuries of doubt and debate, and today I will rip the cover off it, because science has finally caught up with what faith has whispered for thousands of years, that belief in God and the practice of religion is not just a matter of philosophy, it is a matter of biology, it is a matter of health, it is a matter of survival. Belief in God and religion is not a side note of human history, it is not a cultural decoration or a relic of the past, it is one of the most powerful forces encoded into the very biology of your brain and body, and when you understand how this force operates, you will never look at faith the same way again, because science itself now confirms that belief is not just spiritual but biological, not just an invisible practice but a measurable transformation in your nervous system, immune system, and mental health. And what shocks people who hear this truth for the first time is that every single prayer, every single act of surrender, every single decision to trust in God is not just an emotional comfort. It is a neurological event that literally reshapes the architecture of your brain in ways that increase your ability to withstand stress, increase your capacity to heal, and increase your chance of surviving in a world that constantly tries to crush you under its weight. When a person believes in God, the regions of the brain responsible for fear and anxiety begin to calm because the amygdala, which normally fires during moments of stress and threat, is quieted by the signals from the prefrontal cortex that rise up when you are engaged in deep faith or prayer. And this change does not just feel like peace, it becomes peace on a chemical level because your adrenal glands begin producing less cortisol, less adrenaline, and less of the destructive hormones that eat away at your body over time, which means that what looks like a simple act of bowing your head in prayer is actually an act of lowering your blood pressure, slowing your heart rate, and reversing the toxic storm that stress is unleashing in the lives of people who believe in nothing. The shocking reality is that your immune system listens to your beliefs. And when you choose to believe in a God who holds you, guides you, and protects you, your body receives that message as safety. And when the body feels safe, the immune cells multiply, the T cells activate, the inflammatory markers go down, and your very biology begins to fight sickness with more strength and precision, which is why study after study reveals that people of faith recover from surgery faster, respond to treatments more powerfully, and are less likely to die prematurely from diseases connected to chronic stress, because belief does what medicine cannot always do. It goes to the core of the mind-body connection and sends a message of endurance to every cell. Belief is not fantasy. It is fuel for the nervous system because the brain has mirror neurons, dopamine pathways, and serotonin systems that are all activated when you feel connected to something larger than yourself, and when your belief is anchored in God, that connection becomes unshakable, and your brain begins to release chemicals that do more than make you feel good. They make you stable, they make you focused, they make you less reactive to chaos, which is why people grounded in faith often endure storms that destroy others, because their biology has been trained by belief to fight despair with resilience. Now imagine the alternative: a brain without faith, a nervous system that sees only randomness, a body that wakes up every day believing that it is alone, unprotected, unsupported, and without purpose. What happens to that biology? It drowns in cortisol, it suffocates in adrenaline, it produces inflammation that damages the arteries, burns the neurons, weakens the immune system, and makes a person more likely to fall into depression, anxiety, and disease. And this is exactly what science is showing us, that disbelief is not just a philosophical stance, it is a biological vulnerability, while belief in God is a shield built directly into the brain. Do you see the pattern? Faith activates the prefrontal cortex, the center of planning, focus, and control, and it quiets the amygdala, the center of fear and panic, so that a believer is literally practicing mental and emotional regulation at the highest possible level every time they pray, every time they meditate on scripture, every time they gather in worship, and this repeated practice forms stronger neural connections that over time harden into resilience, which means belief is not just a comfort in the moment, it is the practice that builds a brain capable of facing the chaos of life without breaking. This is why faith cannot be dismissed, because if you take a brain scan of someone who prays daily, who worships weekly, who believes deeply, you will see different patterns of activity than someone who does not. You will see thicker gray matter in the regions of emotional regulation. You will see higher levels of neuroplasticity. You will see more efficient connectivity between regions that control thought and feeling, and these are not just images on a machine. They are the reason that believers are often less likely to collapse under pressure, less likely to give in to despair, and more likely to rise again after disaster. What science is proving now is what people of faith have known for centuries, that belief in God is not an illusion to escape reality. It is the mechanism that equips you to handle reality. It is not weakness but strength, not fantasy but biology. And when skeptics mock belief, they are mocking one of the most powerful survival tools that humans possess, because history shows us clearly that societies grounded in faith are societies that endure, and neuroscience now shows us that individuals grounded in faith are individuals that thrive. When you place your belief in God, you are not just changing your mind, you are changing your biology. You are instructing your body to heal faster, to endure longer, to fight harder, and to live stronger. And this is why faith has remained unshakable across cultures and across centuries, because human beings who believe are literally healthier, stronger, and more resilient than those who do not, and science is no longer able to deny it. The evidence is overwhelming, so the next time you feel the urge to pray, the next time you feel faith rise in your chest, the next time you sense that pull to believe in something greater than yourself, do not suppress it, because that urge is not weakness, it is not ignorance. It is your biology calling out for alignment. It is your brain demanding the power of belief. It is your body crying out for the strength of faith, because to believe in God is to step into the most powerful healing force ever written into human nature, and that is why faith is not just spiritual power, it is biological power, and to live without it is to cut yourself off from one of the greatest advantages ever given to mankind.
Science proves that prayer, worship, and faith-based community extend human health, heal depression faster, reduce blood pressure, increase resilience, and even lengthen lifespan, making belief one of the most powerful medicines ever discovered. And this statement is not built on guesswork or blind faith, but on mountains of research that consistently reveal the shocking truth that faith-based practices are some of the most reliable health interventions available to the human race. And the reason this is so shocking is because many people believe religion is just ritual or tradition, something old and irrelevant, yet the data shows that the very practices of prayer, meditation on scripture, worship, and gathering with others in faith-based communities create measurable biological changes in the body that rival or even surpass what modern medicine can do, and this reality shakes people because it proves that the human body is designed to respond to belief in God in a way that strengthens every system of life itself when people pray. Studies show electrical activity in the brain shifts dramatically. The prefrontal cortex lights up with focus and calm, while the amygdala quiets down, lowering fear responses and anxiety, and this neurological shift cascades into physical health, reducing the output of cortisol, balancing the autonomic nervous system, and creating a state where the body is no longer in constant fight or flight. And what that means practically is that prayer is not just words to heaven, it is medicine for the heart, medicine for the brain, medicine for the blood vessels, and it explains why people who pray daily have lower blood pressure, reduced heart disease, and greater longevity, because prayer is not just an expression of belief. It is a biological intervention, but the power of worship goes even further, because when people sing together, lift their voices in faith, and engage their bodies in the rhythms of praise, the brain releases oxytocin, the same bonding hormone that a mother feels when holding her child, and this chemical floods the body with feelings of safety, connection, and love, which lowers stress and boosts immune function, and when that happens regularly, it rewires the brain's reward circuits so that worshipers become more resilient to depression, more resistant to loneliness, and more able to bounce back from hardship. And this is not theory. It is proven in research that shows people who attend weekly worship services are significantly less likely to die early, significantly more likely to recover from illness, and significantly happier than those who do not. And this is a truth that cannot be ignored. Now consider the role of faith-based community, which many dismiss as tradition, yet it is one of the most powerful health forces in the world, because human beings were not designed to live in isolation. And when you belong to a community rooted in faith, you experience connection on a level deeper than casual social gatherings, because the bond is not just friendship but purpose, and that purpose creates meaning, and meaning heals the brain in ways nothing else can, because meaning reduces the existential emptiness that drives depression. And when meaning flows through your brain, your dopamine system aligns, your serotonin stabilizes, and your mental health flourishes. And this is why studies prove that people who are active in religious communities recover from depression nearly twice as fast as those who are not. Because faith plus community creates a force of healing that medicine cannot manufacture. Longevity itself is transformed by belief, because multiple studies across cultures and nations reveal that those who live with consistent faith practices live years longer than those who do not, and skeptics try to explain it away by saying believers live healthier lifestyles. But even when researchers control for diet, exercise, income, and education, the data still shows that faith extends life, and the reason is simple. When you pray, when you worship, when you belong to a faith community, you lower stress, you strengthen the heart. You fortify the immune system, you protect the brain from decline, and all of these combined give you more years, more energy, and more strength. And that is why the faithful bury fewer of their young, survive more of their illnesses, and endure more of life's storms. The shocking truth is that prayer and worship are therapies the body has been waiting for all along, and scientists are now beginning to understand that the human brain is literally designed for belief, because neural scans reveal that when people pray, the same reward circuits that activate during acts of survival light up, meaning that belief is processed by the brain as something essential, not optional. And this is why faith-based practices not only heal the mind, but also protect the body from the diseases of despair that plague a faithless culture. Because when people stop believing, depression rises, suicide rises, addiction rises, and despair spreads like a virus. But when people pray, when people worship, when people believe together, despair is crushed, loneliness is shattered, and hope becomes a living chemical that sustains the human system. The health benefits of belief do not stop with the individual, they ripple through entire families and societies, because children raised in households of faith show lower rates of anxiety, lower rates of substance abuse, and higher rates of academic achievement, and couples who worship together report stronger marriages, greater happiness, and greater resilience through hardship. And societies with strong faith communities show lower crime, higher trust, and greater endurance during crises, which proves that the health benefits of belief are not just personal, they are generational, they are cultural, they are civilizational, and when faith disappears, it is not just spirituality that dies, it is health, it is resilience, it is the very strength of society. Every single prayer is a biological event. Every single worship song is a neurochemical intervention. Every single act of gathering in faith is a rewiring of the human brain and body toward strength. And the longer you engage in these practices, the more permanent these benefits become, because repeated prayer builds new neural pathways, repeated worship floods the body with healing chemicals, repeated community reshapes identity into resilience, and all of this adds up to a shocking conclusion that faith is not just belief in the unseen. It is a medicine more powerful than most people have ever realized. And when you finally accept this truth, you will understand that faith is not an optional tradition or a private comfort. It is a biological necessity. It is a built-in survival mechanism. It is the original medicine written into the human body. And the science now shows that to live without prayer, without worship, without faith, is to deprive your body of one of the most powerful forces of health available to mankind, which is why the future of human resilience, longevity, and health will not be found only in laboratories or pharmacies, but also in the ancient practices of belief in God and the communal strength of religion. Because those who pray will live longer, those who worship will rise stronger, and those who believe will heal faster. And the world cannot ignore this any longer. Faith is not weakness. It is the evolutionary advantage that transforms chaos into order, despair into endurance, and loneliness into strength, giving believers a level of resilience and protection that nothing else on earth can replace. And this is the shocking reality that most people never realize, because they think belief in God is just an emotional crutch or a psychological trick. Yet, science itself now confirms that those who live with genuine faith respond to trauma, stress, and adversity in ways that make them stronger, more focused, and more enduring than those who do not. And the truth is so clear that it cannot be denied. Belief has always been the hidden advantage of human survival, the invisible strength that empires tried to destroy but could never eliminate. Power that carried entire generations through suffering, war, and disaster, when others broke apart, when life collapses, when tragedy strikes, when the weight of despair crushes the human spirit. Those who do not believe often sink into hopelessness because their world tells them they are alone, random, and unsupported. But those who believe in God stand in the same storm and feel something different. They feel guided, they feel watched over, they feel that their suffering is not meaningless, and that sense of meaning acts like fire in the nervous system. It creates resilience that medicine cannot manufacture, because meaning is the greatest fuel the human brain has ever known, and belief gives it in abundance. So what others call weakness is in fact the secret strength that makes survival possible. Despair is one of the greatest killers of the human race, because hopelessness destroys not just the mind but the body. It weakens the immune system, it drains the hormones that sustain life, it increases the risk of disease, it accelerates aging, and it shatters mental health. Yet faith obliterates despair because it injects meaning into pain. It reframes suffering as purpose. It takes what looks like darkness and transforms it into a pathway toward growth. And this shift is not just psychological, it is biological, because when the brain believes there is meaning, dopamine levels rise, serotonin balances, stress hormones decrease, and the body itself begins to fight harder, live longer, and endure more, which is why studies show that religious people are less likely to commit suicide, more likely to recover from grief, and more likely to rebuild their lives after trauma. Because faith transforms despair into endurance. Loneliness is another epidemic destroying the world, because the human brain was never designed to live in isolation, and loneliness is not just an emotion, it is a biological poison. It increases inflammation, raises blood pressure, weakens immunity, and damages the heart. Yet belief in God and the practices of religion annihilate loneliness at the deepest level, because when you believe, you are never alone. You carry the awareness of divine presence with you. You feel connected to something greater than yourself. And beyond that, religion pulls you into communities that are bonded not by shallow interests but by eternal purpose. And this combination of divine connection and human fellowship destroys the power of loneliness, replacing it with strength, belonging, and resilience. And this is why people rooted in faith live longer, heal faster, and endure more pain with less collapse, because their biology has been rewired by belief into connection. Faith also transforms chaos into order. Because the human mind cannot function in an environment of constant randomness, and when people believe there is no higher power, life becomes chaotic. Every tragedy feels meaningless, every struggle feels cruel, and that chaos sends the brain into overload. But when you believe in God, the chaos is reframed as part of a larger order, a divine plan, and your brain responds by calming, by focusing, by releasing neurotransmitters that create peace instead of panic. And this peace is not imaginary. It is measurable in brain scans that show believers have stronger activity in prefrontal cortex, which regulates thought and emotion, and lower activity in the amygdala, which drives fear, meaning that faith literally transforms chaos into order in the circuitry of the brain itself. And this transformation spills out into life as clearer decisions, steadier emotions, and stronger resilience in the face of storms throughout history. The resilience of believers has been unmatched, because when plagues struck, it was the faithful who endured with courage when wars raged. It was the faithful who rebuilt societies when persecution came. It was the faithful who refuse to surrender, and science now explains why, because faith activates a network in the brain called the default mode network, which shapes identity and meaning, and when you believe, the network integrates your experiences into a narrative of growth, not collapse, which means your brain interprets pain as something you can survive and even grow from, and this makes you stronger than the person who interprets the same pain as random suffering with no purpose, and this advantage has been passed down through generations, making faith not just a spiritual idea but an evolutionary strength that secures survival. This is why belief can never be dismissed, because even at the level of biology, it is clear that faith protects the human mind and body from breaking under the weight of suffering, and every single study that examines resilience in the face of trauma shows the same pattern. People of faith stand back up when others remain crushed. People of faith find purpose in loss when others only find despair. People of faith turn suffering into strength, while others let it become destruction. And this difference is not imaginary. It is not psychological trickery. It is the advantage of belief, the evolutionary gift of faith that has carried humanity across centuries of darkness into the light even today. In a world flooded with mental illness, depression, and addiction, faith continues to act as the one advantage that medicine cannot duplicate, because no pill can give you meaning, no drug can give you divine connection, no therapy can fully replicate the power of belief in God, and this is why faith-based recovery programs outperform secular ones, why believers in addiction treatment are more likely to remain sober, why grieving people with faith are less likely to collapse into chronic depression, because faith provides the very thing the human brain and body crave most: a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, a sense of connection, and these three things are the foundation of resilience. Faith is not weakness. It is not a crutch. It is the hidden weapon that turns ordinary people into survivors, that turns broken people into healers, that turns fearful people into warriors, and without it, the human system collapses faster, suffers longer, and dies sooner, because belief is not just about eternity. It is about resilience here and now. It is about how the brain interprets pain, how the body responds to stress, and how the soul endures hardship. And when you believe, your biology, your psychology, and your spirit align into one force of unstoppable endurance, and this is why faith is the evolutionary advantage, the secret strength that the world cannot take away and science can no longer deny. So when the storms of life hit you, when tragedy knocks you to the ground, when loneliness tries to poison your soul, remember that belief in God is not the weakness the world says it is. It is the shield that makes you resilient, the fire that gives you endurance, and the connection that makes you stronger than every force that tries to break you, because faith is the ultimate transformation of despair into hope, chaos into order, and loneliness into strength, and it is the power that has carried humanity through the darkest nights into the light of survival.